Hi, this is Akilan Thangaraja, the first author of the paper ID 56 titled Video Foreground Detection in Non-Static Background Using Multidimensional Color Space. Let me start our presentation with an overview outline. Basically, we will start with a sort of an overview of the presentations, and then we will move into the algorithm descriptions, followed by some experimental results. At the end, we will have a short discussion and conclusions. So, the video surveillance is one of the eco-friendly approaches in any surveillance system, rather than using multiple electromagnetic wave-based sensors and sensor networks. It is because in video surveillance, it's just a visual cameras going to capture the scene, and then our algorithm going to analyze it and then produce some results for surveillance purposes. In this way, in video surveillance, background subtraction is one of the key or the vital process which ignore the unwanted scene area and then bring the attention to the moving objects such as moving cars or walking man or group of people perform some activities. So the importance of background subtraction, because you can see in the first image, first picture A, that is the current scene whereby a car is moving and the man is walking down the street. So whereby we can see the only foreground region, which is the interested region for any high level analysis, is only about 25 to 30%. So it means that about 70 to 75% of the scene is not necessary to keep in track. So we have to extract or subtract the background and then extract the foreground information for any high level analysis such as traffic monitoring, human activity recognitions, human machine interface or interactions, and moving object tracking, which is very important for surveillance purposes. So in literature, the Gaussian mixture model based algorithm in recent years or in the past couple of decades have the highest applicability in this field. So there are people actually improve the standard GMM based background subtraction in the literature 11 in our paper. The literature 11 number is an effective GMM, and the other one is a GMM based conditional random field based approaches in literature 12 and 13, and then variational clusters GMM in literature 14, and finally the wavelet transformation based GMM as well. In these algorithms, although they perform well, these algorithms are high complexity, which is not necessary for a fixed area or fixed area of monitoring, or the background is known for prior the actual monitoring tasks such as in ATM monitoring and shopping complex or bank. So we are looking forward to provide a simplistic algorithm which perform well at the same time. It's very simple. So we introduced two strategies. One is a probabilistic based background modeling, and the other one is a 3D color space model using a distance vector. Let me explain how the first model works, the probabilistic maze. So we collect n number of samples prior to actual monitoring. You can see in this equation, and then we form a PMF based background modeling. You can see here we extract a scene, and then that scene is separated into three channels. If it is an RGB, R channel, green channel, and blue channel. Then for every channel, based on the collected number of samples, we form the PMF at every pixels. Then by multiplying each channel's probability based on the PMF, we can form the background model. Then for a new incoming pixel, we estimate what is the probability of the new pixel to be in the background or foreground. How do we determine that? By using this threshold, the new probability which is given by this, and the threshold is TS UV for that pixel coordinate UV. So how do we determine the threshold, which is based on the prior probability of each channels of each pixels, and then we find the minimum of it, which is going to be the threshold. So if the estimated new probability of the pixel based on the collected samples, which is lesser than this threshold, then it must be the foreground, else is greater than or equal, meaning it's the background. Let's move on for the second algorithm. For instance, if we are working in a 3D space, 3D color space model, any 3D points in the space can be in the Cartesian coordinate can given by x, y, z coordinates, and then another point P prime can be given by x prime, y prime, and z prime. So how do we determine whether both the points refer the same place? Both the coordinates refer the same place. We can find the Euclidean distance by using this expression. Basically, we take both the points and subtract them and square them, and then sum of them, take the square root, which is an absolute distance of this Euclidean distance, going to be delta. If the delta approaches to 0, you can see here, if the delta approaches to 0, it means the point P and P prime refer the same point. So can we use this model to determine the background and foreground? Yes, we can, by using the three-dimensional color space models such as RGB, YCBR, YUV, or YIQ. We use these three models in our experiment. So first, since we already collected n number of samples here, and then for every channel, for instance, in this case we have then the green channel. No, sorry, I'm sorry. It's a red channel. We collected all n number of samples. Then for every pixel points, we perform a median filter. So collected n number of samples of red channel at this pixel coordinate UV, we perform a median filtering, and then we form the psi as the generalized background model for that pixel. We repeat the same process for all the pixels and all three channels. Then by this, then we have then a generalized background model given by this. So this MR psi, it's a generalized background model for the red channel, and then followed by other two channels. For a new incoming pixels, we can perform a distance measure by this one, which is similar to the Euclidean distance measure given by here. Then we perform an Euclidean distance measure, check against a threshold delta UV. If it is less than this, it's going to be the foreground pixels. So how do we determine the delta UV, which is the question? So I will explain in the next slides. We can find the delta UV threshold based on a frame differencing in the subsequent frames, every subsequent frame. For instance, you can see this one between the first frame and the second frame, and then followed by the distance second frame to third frame till the last sample we collected K, and then K minus 1. So by doing the frame differencing, we can find this vector, and then if we can find the minimum of this distance vector, which is going to be the threshold. So it means that if our new pixels measure distance measure which is lesser than this del threshold, then it will be the foreground. Else greater than or equal, it means the background. So let me quickly move on to the experiment results. We test our proposed two algorithm against two different data sequences, which is water, waving tree, and then water surface, all from the Microsoft Research website. And then we test in four different color spaces: RGB, YCBR, YIQ, and YUV. So in the experiment results, we can see that our algorithm 1 and algorithm 2 performs better than the standard GMM. We call it an GMM, original GMM, and then we test against, we compare with the wavelet based GMM as well. In the standard GMM, still can perform in all four different color spaces. However, the wavelet transformation based GMMs only work on grayscale, since the wavelet transformation based performs on one dimension. So you can see in the first row, first column is a ground truth given, and then it's followed by the results from the respective algorithms. So we can see that RGB color space in algorithm 1 and algorithm 1 quite close to the ground truth. Meanwhile, in the algorithm 2, almost all the algorithms performs quite well. In the second data sequence, you can see that the algorithm 1 and algorithm 2 perform almost similar. However, in the standard GMM only perform well in the RGB color space, whereby the wavelet transformation based GMM also perform well. However, there are a lot of background noise due to the waving tree. So let's go on to some quantitative analysis. We perform comparisons by using then confusion matrix based quantitative analysis using the measurements of accuracy, recall, and precision and figure of merit. So those measurements can be measured by these equations. Let's go on to the values. So to compare, the higher the figure of merit, the better the algorithm is. So you can see the algorithm 1 and algorithm 2 provide better or similar figure of merit compared to the standard GMM and then the wavelet based GMM. So basically the green ones, you can see that's the best performance. So the algorithm 2 almost provides nearly a 90% of figure of merit in the first data sequence, and go to the second data sequence. So we can see that the algorithm 2 provide the better results, nearly a 97% of figure of merit. So in conclusion, the performance of the two algorithms are good compared to the GMM based two algorithms. However, the problem with the limitations of the proposed algorithm is that the threshold is the key determine the performance, and that threshold depends on the number of samples we collected. So we must have an initialization frames for the algorithm to perform well. However, in GMM based algorithms, they estimate online the background, and then they determine the backgrounds. Determine the background and the foreground. However, these GMM based algorithms have some sensitive parameters such as learning rate and then threshold. These two parameters generally have to be tuned for particular applications to get the best performance. However, our algorithm, we don't need that such learning rates or the threshold. At the same time, threshold is learned in unsupervised manner. So in conclusion, the proposed algorithms are useful whereby the background is known prior to the actual monitoring task, and the cameras actually is fixed at a place and monitors a predetermined area, so that we can use the proposed algorithms such as ATMs or shopping complex places. On the other hand, the effect of the color spaces doesn't have much effect on the performance of the algorithm, as you could see the quantitative analysis and the qualitative analysis given earlier. So in the future work, we are thinking that maybe this algorithm can be improved by providing a weight parameter for the probability based algorithms. For instance, if a pixel point has been detected as a foreground in this frame, can be given a different weightage than the background pixel, so that in the subsequent frames it will have the adaptability to detect the foreground. At the same time, for the Euclidean distance based algorithm, can be improved by using the weight parameters like in Mahalanobis distance measure, so that it has the ability to adapt with the changes in the coming frames. So these are the references. In overall, the performance is good. Let me show you a short video which performs on the water surface data sets in YUV color space for the algorithm 1 for the short demo. So this one is a current frame in YUV color space. This one ground truth. This one supposed to be the detected foreground. So if you move on here, you can see that the algorithms perform well. It has almost detected near similar to the ground truth. So that's here we have some appendix for some references. You all can find these ones in online as well in the paper. So thank you very much for your attention. If you have more questions, hope you can drop me an email.